Well, thank you all for being here today, which appropriately is the first day of summer. I know the wind's blowing, but the sun is definitely out for us, so welcome to the release of Save the Sound's 2023 Long Island Sound Beach Report. This is the third iteration of the biennial beach report, so it comes out every 2 years, and we're happy to be announcing it today at Lighthouse Point Park here in New Haven. I'd also like to thank Connecticut State Representative Joe Gresco. Thank you, Joe, for coming out and joining us on this occasion. My name's Peter Linderoth. I'm the Director of Water Quality at Save the Sound. I'm really happy to be here. I've been at Save the Sound for almost 10 years now, and I grew up on in and around the Sound, and working with Save the Sound is just, it's an honor to work with my colleagues, but it's so much fun just protecting and restoring this water body that's behind us. Really love what we do here. And if you haven't been following along or you're new to Save the Sound, we work to restore and protect the Sound. You're going to hear me say Sound maybe 100 times in this press release. From rivers and shorelines to wetlands and forests, from the air we breathe, and of course the actual waters that are behind me right now. What makes us unique among regional environmental nonprofits is the scope of the work that we do. We have teams that focus on water protection. We have teams that do ecological restoration and resilience using nature-based systems to improve water quality. We have climate lobbyists and advocates that they're out there fighting climate change. We also do land conservation, and we also have a strong focus on environmental justice projects. So before we get started on the grades, I want to share some information on Long Island Sound. And there'll be a quiz for some of the interns that are here today on this one, so make sure to listen. The Sound is an estuary and designated as one of national significance. A remarkable diversity of marine animals live in the waters of the Sound, from a dizzying array of plankton in the lower levels of the food web, all the way up to marine mammals that we are so happy to see returning to the Sound more and more as the years go by. We're seeing humpback whales, we're seeing dolphins come back to the Sound. I've worked with people that have worked on this water body for decades and decades, and they're shocked and happy and thrilled really to see marine mammals returning to these waters. It's a real testament to the improvements of water quality that we've seen over the years. Our estuary is also enjoyed by millions of individuals every single year: Connecticut residents, New York residents, and visitors from around the world. People, just like me, love being on, in, and around the Sound, engaging in activities such as paddling, boating, fishing, and of course, swimming. I'm sure many readers of the Beach Report hold fond memories of days at their favorite beaches, wherever they may be along the shoreline of the Sound. It's also an economic engine providing approximately 200,000 jobs and ecosystem services. Those are functions that the ecosystem provides, which are really hard to gauge, but valued between $17 and $37 billion a year in ecosystem services. Really important water body. And so for these reasons, it's critical that we do the work that we do, and others do around the Sound, to protect it. There was a time decades back that many of you probably recall when most people, I'll go as far as to say most people, were not comfortable swimming in the water of Long Island Sound. They were reading news reports of poor water quality, fish die-offs, lobsters trying to crawl out of the water, big slugs of untreated sewage making its way into our estuary, which is of course completely unacceptable. But thanks to years of advocacy and investment by environmental leaders like Save the Sound, municipal governments, both Connecticut and New York state governments, the EPA, and concerned shoreline residents too, the Sound is now ringed with many beaches that consistently provide water quality meeting safe swimming criteria. And I'll also say ecologically, the Sound has really rebounded over the years. We're seeing statistical improvements in water quality. As part of our efforts to protect and restore Long Island Sound, every 2 years we compile and release our comprehensive beach report that lists the grades for water quality for over 200 swimming beaches all around the Sound. All right. A recurring motto on our team is science to data to advocacy. The testing and data collected tells us what's happening in the water. We broadcast this information to the public and public officials to effect changes that protect and restore this water body that we all love. Now, before we dive into the beach report and all the grades, I'd like to give Connecticut State Representative Joe Gresco a few minutes. Sorry to catch you. He was enjoying the beach too and the view, right? Give him a few minutes to get up and say a few words, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I wanted to start off with, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my predecessor, my good friend Terry Backer, who was the original soundkeeper, and thank you to Save the Sound for absorbing that program into what you do on a daily basis. Bill, Lucy, and I have a similar bond in that he kind of trying to be the soundkeeper after Terry, and I'm trying to be the state rep after Terry. So these are big shoes to fill, but I'm glad to see that the progress is continuing. The numbers are going up. I could speak from a legislative point of view, and that my colleagues understand both the environmental and the economic development driver that Long Island Sound is. It's becoming easier to have conversations and get legislation passed that addresses eelgrass coming back to the Sound over the next couple of years. We passed that bill. The stopping of the hand harvesting of horseshoe crabs to try to get that population back up in the Long Island Sound now that the waters are more habitable for them. The couple of years ago, we did the ability to have municipalities have a stormwater authority, which will also add to the Sound's health over time, and multiple water treatment facilities along the coast. I could speak of one that I'm involved with in Bridgeport, are being redesigned and improved, and also the separation of stormwater from regular sewage. So these are things that are becoming easier to advocate for at the state level, and I only see that the improvements will continue over the years, which it's once the momentum starts going in your favor in improvements, it becomes easier to do the work, in just my opinion. If you're banging your head against the wall and no improvements are being made, it's tough to get up in the morning and do the work. But when you see your work resulting in improvements, it starts the snowball going in your direction. So thank you for letting me have a couple of words. Em told me to be here, so I got to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, and really for everything that you do for the environment and Long Island Sound. Thank you very much. All right, so the Long Island Sound Beach Report grades how healthy the water is for swimming at over 200 beaches. It gets to the heart of a question that I'm asked a lot. I know Bill's asked this. Joe, I'm sure you are. Most people at Save the Sound are. It's, how's the water? And oftentimes what people mean when they say how's the water is, how is it for me to go swimming? How is it for me to go fishing? How is it for me to interact with the water? And that's a really important question. And we do our best to answer it succinctly, however difficult that is. And trust me, it is, especially with an environmental scientist. When they say, how's the water? I mean, I know we have a professor here today. You just kind of are stuck there and you want to lay a full, lecture on it. But, we try to stay succinct. We try to stay to the point. And really with beaches, it's challenging too because of the hyperlocality of beach water quality. The stressors that impact individual beaches are often very much local stressors. And they could be focused in local areas, and they're having an impact on that local beach that residents enjoy. So the 2023 Beach Report contains grades for the 2022 swimming season, in addition to averages for some of the analyses. Now that's really important to remember. You're going to see 2023 on the cover. It's always a year ahead. So we release the beach report with grades that are from the previous swimming season. Of course, we couldn't release a 2023 beach report with grades from this season because it's ongoing, right? We'd like to thank all the data providers that make grades we're discussing today possible. In this case, it's local health departments collecting water samples for pathogen indicator bacteria, also, and this is called Enterococcus, from beaches, and then submitting their data for upload into EPA's water quality portal. That's a tough nut to crack if you're not used to pulling water quality data, but we do, and that's what generates, and it's public data, that's what generates these grades. Save the Sound and advisors developed a system to retrieve those public data, like I said, and to grade them using scientific methods that we developed as a team, but also with external advisors and partners. So this isn't just Save the Sound assigning these grades. these grades were very much developed. The methodology was developed with partners, with advisors, and specialists. And the results of thousands of annual data points, that's what it takes, are distilled down to what people can understand, an A through F system, a very understandable, approachable system for grades. So we encourage people to check out the 2023 Beach Report, of course, but also to check out soundhealthexplorer.org, where they can see over 2 decades of Long Island Sound beach grades. All right, so taking a deeper dive into the findings, how do we read the grades? So what are these things that we're putting out there? Beach grades are fueled by combining beach water quality samples of enterococci, that's a pathogen indicator bacteria. When we have high levels of that bacteria in the water, people aren't going to want to be swimming, right? There's a high chance of getting sick. And we also take precipitation data to generate 4 grading metrics that combine for 1 overall grade per beach per year. Specifically, the frequency of sample failures against established safe swimming criteria during wet and dry weather, and magnitude of failures during wet and dry weather. And a minimum of 9 samples have to be collected for a beach to get a grade any given year. Tracking fluctuations in water quality connected to rainfall provides insights into possible polluted sources that can then be investigated, confirmed, and addressed. We'll talk more about those in a few minutes. I'll reiterate the great news, though, and I've mentioned it a couple times. There's lots of great beaches around the Sound. Over 78% of our beaches received an A or a B. That's really good news. We're not a doom and gloom organization. We love pushing out information like that to the public. So 78% of the beaches around the Sound are getting an A and a B. Now, while we can't list all of them, we have put a poster together that compiles lists for the 10 highest scoring public beaches in Connecticut and in New York. And here we're looking at the Connecticut list of the highest scoring beaches. And there's quite a few A pluses and A's. And again, we couldn't list them all, but fortunately, and this is just the way it worked out, all the coastal counties are represented. So we have New London, New Haven, Fairfield County, and lots of great beaches on here for people to check out if they'd like to. But I want to reiterate, there's also lots of other beaches out there that people should enjoy as well. But here we're looking at the 10 highest scoring beaches for Connecticut. These are based on a 3-year grade average and are the cream of the 2020-2022 swimming season crop. Though there are many exceptional beaches, like I said, this is our top 10 list. And so, in addition to all the great beaches, we're here today. And one of the questions I get, because we do work here now and then, is would you swim here? And I absolutely would swim here at Lighthouse Point Park Beach. It's gorgeous. It's a beautiful beach. It's a little windy for me today, maybe, but I would definitely swim here. It does have some known stressors, but it is getting a B, so it's getting a great grade. And as long as people are paying attention to beach operators and managers that shut the beach down when it needs to be shut down, this is an exceptional beach to go swimming at. So, if you're following the math, though, so going on, 22% of the beaches around the Sound are receiving a C or lower. And obviously that's room for improvement. So this is the greatest opportunity that the Beach Report provides. We don't list poor grades to shame or cast blame. We do so because identifying problems at specific beaches can jumpstart conversations between residents and beach operators and managers and others to get to the heart of the issue and hopefully improve those grades. So again, it's not a shaming of a municipality or beach operator, but we did for the first time this year develop a list of the lowest scoring beaches. And trust me, the press was out there doing it anyhow, so we thought we'd help you out, and we've got our list of lowest scoring beaches available. These are beaches that you can believe that Save the Sound and others are focused in on to try to improve the grades. I'm not going to name them. They're here, and they definitely have our attention. We have teams like the Soundkeeper team going out, collecting samples, looking for additional areas where sources of contamination might be coming in. And we share these with mayors and municipalities, Department of Public Works crews, and we are going to be working on these beaches, and hopefully by the next beach report, we'll lift some off this lowest scoring figure. All right, so now let's review the regional grades and failure percentages. Thank you. Now, you probably can't see that in the back, but it's very clear that wet weather brings high volumes of one of the stressors, namely stormwater, to beaches. The overall failure rate of beach samples was nearly 3 times as high during wet weather than it was during dry weather, so 13.5% to 5.2% overall. Beach closures and failures after rainstorms are concerning for several reasons. First, elevated levels of fecal contamination after rain can often indicate untreated sewage making its way to a beach. Second, beaches with abundant wet weather failures have large swaths of impervious surfaces, so think roofs, roads, other areas that are leading to high volumes of polluted stormwater running off to the beach. And third, rainfall intensity and frequency are increasing due to climate change. This is a message that we drill on often, and it's really important that we always keep it in mind. Rainstorms are definitely more intense, happening with more frequency, and that is having impacts on our beaches, and we advocate strongly for nature-based solutions to stop rainwater where it falls, such as rain gardens and bioswales. And while lower in frequency, we also see dry weather failures occurring at some beaches. These can be from various sources, but are generally from pets and wildlife, and or nearby failing sewage infrastructure. All right, so what can we do? There's lots we can do. For local residents, don't pollute. Keep plastics and pet waste off of our beaches, out of our rivers and streams, and out of the storm drains that make their way down to the coast. If you're connected to a municipal sewage system, ensure your private sewer line is in good repair. And if you have a septic system, make sure that you're following maintenance, and consider installing newer systems to get your septic tank or cesspool offline. There's newer technologies out there that do a much better job at treating waste. And finally, if your beach scores poorly, speak to your local elected officials and voice your concern and ask them what they're doing to improve water quality. All right, speaking of elected officials, we ask you to invest in water infrastructure. So this is a message to all elected officials. Invest in water infrastructure often and early so we don't lose our beaches to pollution. Climate change brings more rain to our regions and alters the landscape. The time to act is right now to protect our Long Island Sound beaches. Like we said, water quality across the Sound has come so far, but we might be at a tipping point now where what we do and decide in the next 5 to 10 years could impact the next 50 plus in terms of water quality. All right, so wrapping up, I want to thank you all again. Happy start of summer. We're happy to stick around. I know Joe will stick around. I'll definitely be here to answer any questions that people may have. Don't forget the 2023 Beach Report is online, savethesound.org. You can also access it at soundhealthexplorer.org. And be sure to get out and enjoy your favorite beach often this summer. It always goes by kind of like the blink of an eye. Thank you again.
Bravo.
Great.
Bravo.
Oh, thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. So we'll stick around for some questions.
Do you have a list of like most improved beaches?
Most improved?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have the highest scoring, we got the lowest scoring. That's the kind of thing we could put together, definitely. Yeah, we could look at, if you had some specifics for us, we could look at some most improved. Now that we have 20 years of data, we have a really good, abundant source. So we could look back and even potentially, although I'm cautious of doing things like this, start putting statistics and look at actual trends on some of the beaches.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting for Connecticut.
Yeah. Yeah, in the report we do, definitely for Connecticut, in the report we happen to highlight one across the pond, or I guess more literally the estuary, at Sunken Meadow Park, where we did a huge green infrastructure project where we did pervious pavement, replaced a lot of impervious old pavement, put in a lot of trees, restored some wetlands, and the beach that's really close to that location went from like C's, low B's, into 3 straight years of A pluses. And I'm careful to say it's statistically significant, but it's just a demonstration, and it's in the report, so give it a read, on how those type of projects can improve local water quality. Great question.
Anything in the report, I mean, we've got a lot of good use, but anything in the report that sort of is a red flag to you guys that's popped up?
Yeah, well, I talked about climate change and precipitation increase. So the intensity and the frequency of storms, I mean, we do have a jump in wet weather failures. And as that kind of climate change is very real, and as that is occurring and the weather keeps warming up, we get more rain, we have to be more aware of the increased rain that's falling around the Sound and making its way to beaches. So reducing stormwater is a really, I wouldn't call it the red flag, but it's the solution to the red flag of the increase in precipitation that we've been having. Also, we do take a close look at those D's and F's, that lowest scoring list. That was based on, again, 3 years of data, but we do look at those, and we find that a lot of them are focused around either areas with a lot of on-site sewage treatment or areas with combined sewer overflows that need to be separated, like Joe was talking about. And those are red flags because they can lead to people getting sick when they interact with the water. So continuing to address those issues to protect public health.
How did last summer's drought impact, if you're talking about rain is, one of the biggest stressors?
Yeah.
Get a lot of it last summer.
Yeah. So an interesting thing too, where I'm careful with saying like year to year interannual variability, is that samples are collected weekly. So you could have a drought, but you could still have like some rain, right? It's not like it didn't rain. And if people are collecting samples around those rain events, our data won't necessarily fully pick up a drought year versus a wet year. In a drier year, though, we do tend to see less wet weather failures, certainly. But interestingly, another thing that can happen is when it's dry for a prolonged period of time, some of the pollutants that stormwater rinses off, like pet waste and other things that can build up on the roads, that first slug, that first rain event after a long dry spell is often incredibly concentrated and contaminated. So just something to keep in mind. Good question. Anything else? No? All right, well, we'll stick around. So we'll be here if anyone wants to do any interviews or such. Bill Lucy, our soundkeeper, is here as well, as Joe pointed out. And I want to thank you all for coming out again. Thank you. Thanks a lot. It's good that none